This is how people were meant to run. That's the purest form of the sport, is trail running.
Yeah, I can run a mile really fast, I can run 2 miles really fast, I can run 6 miles really fast. But can I run 100 miles?
It's kind of like you slowly see how it can be possible.
I don't know if ultra runners have a shared personality as much as maybe a shared mental defect of some type.
This is what we came for. We came to endure pain so that we can say that we accomplished something.
At some point, that negative self-talk is going to go through your mind and you're going to tell yourself, I can't do this.
You start the race in the best shape of your life, and you probably finish in the worst shape of your life.
It doesn't matter when we finish, it's just that we finish. Because that lifetime experience that you're going to gain from that is just so phenomenal.
When you hear about Hawaii, everybody sees the beaches, the ocean, the surfing. I mean, that's what brought me over here. We have world-class beaches, we've got world-class surf, but we also have the most beautiful trails and the most beautiful jungles without crowds anywhere in the world.
If you want to see what a lot of people don't see in Hawaii, do some trail running.
At this point, we're at about 30 miles into the race, and so it's, I don't know, maybe it's about noon or 1 o'clock, and we're pretty happy there. Later on in the race, it was a little bit harder, and we didn't look as good as we do here. So that was an eventful year. We finished it that year, didn't we, John? 86? I didn't. Oh, that's one where I was throwing up at mile 70, and I couldn't get out of the aid station, so John went on. But it was a great experience. It was the first one I had ever done, and you learn a lot from that first one. There was a group of us that started meeting after work. A bunch of us had joined the Oahu Athletic Club, which doesn't exist anymore. We gravitated towards each other because there were like maybe 10 or 15 of us.
We just ran as a group for a while. We were out running one day and we were talking about some of the other clubs that were on the mainland, and some of them had acronyms and interesting names, and we were trying to think of, what we could name our group. Between John and I think I came up with the acronym one day and it kind of stuck.
So we would meet there maybe a couple times after work and run for, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles. On the weekends, started running longer distances when John suggested that we all train to break 4 hours in the Honolulu Marathon.
The Honolulu Marathon once a year was the big race for most of us, so everybody built up to that. I hadn't heard of ultras. I thought a marathon was the ultimate run that you could do, but little did I know. So.
Up until that time, it was road running, and it was 10Ks and the marathon. And so that quickly expanded because John then got involved in doing Run to the Sun, which is 36 miles.
John was really the instigator of the long distance events. We couldn't believe he was doing something like that and running up to 10,000 feet. We really wanted to do that too, so we all went over as a group the next year. think there was just something that we all felt was really magical about Haleakala, especially when you got up to, you know, after 7,000 feet. The views are just gorgeous.
Well, John is a salesman. You know, that's what he did for a living. So he's very at ease talking to people and closing that sale. And that's what he'd do with running. And when we formed HURT, you know, he'd draw people into the group.
I used to convince people to run to the sun, and I had a deal where I would tell them, when you get to the top, I'll be at the top, and if you don't like it, just tell me right at the top, and dinner's on me at the best restaurant in town. And nobody ever took me up on it. And I convinced about 400 or 500 people to run that thing.
He had me convinced early on that he would get me where I could do Run to the Sun. And I said, well, I've never even done a marathon. I've never even done a 10K. He said, don't worry, we will take care of you.
As we formed our group, we started putting on ultras ourselves. At first, road ultras, which were much more popular in the 80s. You don't find road ultras too much these days. We put on several just so we'd have events that we could do there in Hawaii.
We had a friend named Bob Davidson who was really into the trails, and he's the one that encouraged us to get out on the trails and run.
There were no trail ultras in Hawaii until we started the Tantalus Triple Trek, which was a 50-kilometer run on our home trails on Tantalus.
That was the first races that we started putting on. So that was about 27, 28 years ago.
Trail Series races started out being like $10.
You showed up with your $10 and PJ would scribble a number on your leg and you'd go run, you know, it was awesome.
Probably if some guy came up to them and said, man, I don't have $10, they'd say, come on anyway. It wasn't a money thing. It never has been.
Back in the early 80s, there was no goos, there was no protein drinks. We would take red potatoes that were boiled and salted. That was our food that we took, and it was a totally different world in those days.
We've gone through so many different kinds of packs. You should have seen what we wore at Barkley.
8-ounce bottles.
Look, you had to do this and do a roll full of dust. That, and then they have to open these up and fill them. And then when you want to drink, you got to pull that off and then pull this off. And, you know, it's not very practical at all. It's like you wanted to have an assortment of 4 drinks or what? No.
When we first started running hundreds, there were 300s in the United States. You couldn't Google how to run a 100-mile race like you can today. You know, there were magazine stories about people's adventures and what you did, and you know, we didn't know how to go to the bathroom off the trail, and you know, there's a lot of things that come into play that nobody had told us. We didn't know how to do it.
We used to do training runs every Saturday. If you're doing 25, 30 miles every Saturday, it gets to be where it's not that hard. You get conditioned to it.
It just is something that evolved out of a lot of friendships. We just gradually grew into this ohana.
We did everything together. It wasn't just a running group, it was our friends, our family, it was our whole lifestyle.
HURT put on a Honolulu City Lights run. And so I said, oh, okay, you know what, I'm gonna try to go out and do this. So I went out and did it, and I finished first in the 50K, and then I started talking with Big John and said, you know, I'd really like to do 100-mile trail runs. Can you help me out? And then so he hooked me up with a guy named Bill Molman. And from there, my trail ultra running life began. From the day I met Bill, there was 3 or 4 of us who would go out and run together. And that was myself, Bill, a guy named Greg Perkle, and Greg Quadra. And we were all highly competitive. And we all had one goal in mind, and that was for us to each run a 100-miler at some point in time. And we had visions of putting on a 100-mile race ourselves. So we would get together, and we became known as the 4 Horses because we'd run faster than the rest of the group, which we thought we were fast. But based upon what these guys are running out there now, in hindsight, we weren't very fast.
Brian Ockabill Moment. He was called the Reverend because we'd be running along the trail and all of a sudden he would just start spouting off in this huge booming voice of his, life is good in the Church of the Holy Trail, you know, and then everybody else would just say, amen, you know. But he had this idea. He said, you know, we need to make 100. We need to make 100 miles. We were all traveling to the mainland to do hundreds, you know, and going all over the place to do hundreds. But Akka said, no, we got to have our own. You know, and he was insistent on it. We mulled over these ideas. We thought, well, we'll go to Kalalaua Trail. It's such a dangerous trail, you know, at nighttime, people falling off 300 feet into the ocean or the rocks below was just, didn't seem like an option. So we decided that we would measure the trails that we ran. We had a course that we used to do, we used to call it the T-Bone. And it's pretty much the Hurt Trail today. You know, it started at the Nature Center, went up to Po'oa Flats, and then we'd go down to Manoa Falls, then come back up, and then go down to New Orleans, come back up. And if you look at it on a map, it kind of looks like a T-bone steak.
We didn't have GPS watches back then, so we literally wheeled the course. When we came to a route where we have to go up, we lifted the thing straight up, stopped the wheel, continued on. It took several weeks to get the whole course wheeled. And what we had been running, which we thought was 20 miles, was only 16, 17 miles. So then we added on pieces to the course and magically came up with 100.1 miles. Now it could be off a little bit, but you know, who's counting? We said, well, we haven't put on races. Who can make this happen? And Ockabill said, we got to go to John and PJ Salmonson. And the first words out of John's mouth were, let's do this. We can make this happen. So from that point, the idea of the Hurt 100 was spawned.
That's a validation. Our Hurt mission statement from 1982 is no profit and no assholes. So sorry, we don't have any logos on our shirts, and you know, we're proud of that. We think of you guys as family, and we want you to think of the same. We're all a family. We're going to have fun today. We're all going to pull for each other. On 3, go.
The course itself, what I think makes it so hard is it's a 5-lap race. There's 3 aid stations in 20 miles, and there's also basically 3 out and backs, 2 of them long. There's only 13 miles of unique trail in this race. So what happens is after a lap, you've seen it, and you're never more than about 45 minutes from dropping out of the race and being on the beach, and that really affects people's psyche.
Every 20 miles, you are pretty much at Waikiki Beach. You could be done relaxing on the beach if you want, and you have to go back out and climb Hogsback again.
You've just got to get over the mental of the redundancy of doing 5 loops and doing the same 3 major climbs on each loop.
It's pretty much a pig trail. There's rocks and roots there right where God put them, and they're just, they never end.
People ask, what's the trick? What makes Hurt so unique? You know, there is no trick. The trick is to go out there and do the hard work. And what you experience out there are the side effects of that hard work that everybody puts in.
There's so many things you can do if you just set your mind into it. And it's applied through life, right? It's not just through running. I don't know, I just feel good being out here. It's just kind of like being an ultra runner where, you know, you're always out in the trail and being outside, being with nature. It kind of gives the same feeling for me out here in the farm. I've been with Hertz since 2011. You know, you get invited and you're like, okay, I'm just going because of your friend, right? And then you see all these people just kind of like cheering for the runners as they go through. And then you notice the runners and they're just beat up, tired, just like not having a good day. And yet they just keep going. And you kind of wonder like, what's driving these people to do this stuff?
I met up with a group of friends for a random street run, and they were like, is anyone going to go volunteer at the Hurt 100 race? And I thought, what? People run 100 miles?
First run, I think we had 58 runners. It was really homemade at the time.
Bottom line is we really didn't know what we were doing. And it took several years before finally the event caught on and runners started to believe in the product that Hurt was putting out there.
It took a couple of years for the local running community to kind of figure it out. When we first trained, it was really rare for anybody to do more than 2 loops. The first year, it was mostly mainland finishers for sure.
Because you had a guy, Alfred Bogenhuber, who was a phenomenal icon in ultra running. He came out here and he was over 60 years old at the time, and Luis Escobar was out here. And they staged an epic battle. And with those 2 guys being mainland guys going back and telling their story, we got instant credibility. Now overnight we didn't get 125 runners. It still took time to build up. Because at that point a lot of people thought that the Hurt was maybe a little bit too gnarly.
It's one of the most challenging races anybody could ever want to enter. That's why they say you wouldn't want it to be easy. You don't come out here to run a piece of cake. Nobody does hundreds for that. It's a challenge.
This is my 800. This is the toughest, most technical race I've ever done in my life.
I came over here as a surfer back in the early 80s. I would run on the trails up here on the North Shore as cross training to help out with the breathing and the fitness and everything. I had never heard of Hurt. I was positive that I was the only trail runner on Oahu, probably the state. I didn't think there was any other trail runners. And then one day I bumped into who became my good buddy, Sean Price, and he was trail running. I'm like, what are you doing on my trails? He said, what are you doing on my trails? So we started running together. And then he and I, we both ran Hurt together a couple of times. $100-mile events are very labor intensive. It takes hundreds of volunteers to put on the event.
The volunteers are incredible. They drive this race.
We have volunteers that fly here every year just to volunteer.
The easiest way never to get in another Hurt run is to abuse a volunteer. So the volunteers are very appreciated, and I think that's what they feel, and they give that back to the runners.
To come into an aid station and they have all these people out there with your bags, with your gear, with food, and just encouraging you to keep going.
Nature Center with John and PJ is always spectacular because those guys are there. Lots of good food, a lot of energy around the Nature Center.
Thank you, you guys!
Pirates of Paradise, which is run by Marion and Neil Yasuda, is incredible.
Everybody wants to be a pirate, right? Over the years, it's just sort of ballooned to this craziness where we actually built this pirate ship. It's just kind of crazy, but fun. And I think it's really important for volunteers because I'm asking them to be there for 6 hours at a time.
We try to find the proper job for the proper people.
To not only feel like they're doing some good, but also to enjoy themselves. It shouldn't be hard work.
Freddie Holmes does Jackass Ginger at Nu'uanu. It's like a 5-star restaurant. He makes you whatever you want, and it's just incredible.
On Fridays, actually, we have, usually I have 2-3 people coming here to volunteer, help me cooking the whole day.
No, that's good. Good? Thank you.
Nu'uanu is technical to come down and go back up. It is a short distance, but it's very technical and it's easy to get hurt on it. Twist an ankle, slide off the hill. The night is the hardest part because you feel alone. And you have hundreds of people on the course, but you, in your own little world, you feel so alone.
In the wintertime, we've got 13 hours plus of darkness. 13 hours is a long time to be in the dark.
It's the middle of the night, and the sleep monster attacks really hard. Your eyes just shut on you involuntarily.
It's sad, but you see people having to drop out because they turned an ankle. It was 3:30 a.m. and they're drifting off, and with the roots and rocks out there, it's really easy to tweak an ankle, and people have to drop out that way.
Time-wise, I'm out, man. There's no frickin' way because this last lap's taken me almost 8 hours. But I guess I do this now for nothing more than pride. You know? I don't like to quit. Not in me, even though, boy, it certainly would feel good right now.
You can be as prepared as possible going into it, but when it finally comes, then you're kind of like second guessing yourself, like what's happening, how do you fix it?
It's a whole different world out here at night. You won't know until you're out here at nighttime.
At 70 miles or so, you're going to have these demons come and tell you that you have an injury or something, and they're going to try to get you to stop. Don't do it. Just keep going.
At night, you're coming out of the jungle, and it's all dark, and all of a sudden you'll hear the music and you'll see the lights, and everybody's giving you high fives and they're giving you hugs, and you're all disgusting and dirty and muddy and sweaty, and still everybody's coming up and giving you bear hugs.
Oh my God, I feel like I came back from the dead. You did!
You look so much better.
Food. It's so crazy.
Because we're a loop course, people keep repeatedly coming into our station, so you get to learn who the people are, you know who they are, you've seen what they've been through before.
You feel their pain. You know almost how they feel. You look in their face. If anybody says they feel great, very seldom is that the truth, because you know exactly what they just went through for 60 or 70 or 80 miles.
The goal is to keep them moving and not have them drop at my aid station.
You guys are great. Good work. John, I will report back to John that you guys did everything you could.
We all think
tried
that
every trick. This is an old dog.
I feel like I've been beaten and beaten some more.
So the Hurt Patrol is a group of approximately a dozen runners. Most all of them have finished Hurt or have a lot of experience with Hurt, know the trails really well. And our main goal out there is to monitor the runners, make sure that nobody's injured. If they are injured, we got to make sure that we can get them off the course. We want to make sure that nobody gets lost.
Good big safety patrol was here. We avoided a disaster.
Good work, guys. Good work.
We as patrollers, we try to stay real positive. We'll tell little white lies through the night. Hey, you look great. And then after you go by, say, oh, that guy looks terrible. So that's part of what we do.
Glad it's over.
I'm really competitive with myself. And even though I'm getting older, I'm really hard on myself, like, oh, I need to, step it up a little bit. I believe the swimming and the biking has really helped with my longevity. I've never really been injured, per se, as an overuse injury. I love pacing, and that's why I don't know if I'll ever do the race. I may one day, but I love seeing people accomplish their goal. I'll show up maybe 9 a.m. at the nature center for a last loop, and there's inevitably someone who needs someone to take them through the last loop. And you barely know these people, and by the end of the loop, crying, and their race becomes your race. So, and that's the Hurt spirit.
Pacing, you are responsible for another person. You're not thinking about yourself. Everything that you're doing is for that person, and you want that person to finish.
Once you're a pacer for somebody, it's like you're their friend for life because you've experienced them at their highest and lowest moments. You learn a lot about them. You learn, don't take it personal because they're gonna be mad at you. They're gonna be happy at you. They're gonna yell at you maybe. It's just a great experience, and you become really close.
A really good friend, Mike he said, Sue, I'm not getting any younger. I need to do this. And I said, oh gosh, I'm not getting any younger either. So maybe I should do it too. So there was a whole group of us that said, we're going to sign up. But oh my God, I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. Freddie knows that course better than anybody. He knows how long it takes you to get to 5 Minute Hill, or what you have to do to get there at that time.
It's been a tough day, and she's doing fantastic. She's got what it takes to make it to the end.
My goal was to keep her pace as fast as she could follow me, but don't go any faster or try not to push her or pull her too fast.
And I knew once he said that you can do it if you follow me, we've got to keep this pace, I knew that we would get there.
Many times I was worried that she was just about to pass me. And I said, you want to pick it up? Or you said, no, I just following your footsteps.
I was running through sections that I never run. I don't even know where it came from.
And I told her, stay within your mile, stay focused, don't get ahead of yourself because you need to get to the finish line.
You're running for everybody else at that point. All those people that have worked so hard to help you get there, it's more than you at that point. It is. You're like running for the team, especially when you hear about your friends that didn't, you know, finish. So you feel like you're running for everybody.
You know, if you go out to do hurt and you're not afraid, something's not right.
From experience, after having dropped out of many 100-milers, I'll tell you, the pain of a DNF is so difficult. Because you know you've let yourself down. You've trained all these, put in all these miles, done all this training. You know mechanically, physically, you can do it. But for whatever reason, something got in the way of that.
Once you get through the 4th loop, it's pretty much just guns and glory the whole way on the 5th.
Everything just gets so fragile in the last loop. And you see this when you're out there and you see the runners, is that they only get through because people are surrounding them, willing them to finish.
You've been out there 35 hours and you've been trudging. You can't believe how slow you've been trudging. And the last hour comes, your mind knows that you've got this in the bag and you forget about your body.
1 year. 1 year obsessing over a DNF here.
The other 2 aid stations shut down and everybody you think wants to go home, they all go to Nature Center just to wait for those last finishes.
And it's just this amazing thing when you have that many people emotionally invested in a few runners.
I think that's where you get a lot of emotion.
You want so badly for everybody to finish that race.
Let's get it done!
It's such a welcoming community. How could you not want to be a part of something as beautiful as the Hurt Ohana?
It's the people of Hurt that make it what it is.
It's all family, it's all Ohana.
Everybody contributes, and that's what makes it so special.
As the Ohana grows, more and more of those people start helping with the races instead of just running the races.
I think it'll keep going. They surely don't need me. It seems to come natural with this group of people.
I'm sure that it'll continue because we see it in the 2 generations of people behind us already, getting together in different groups and going out and training, and they're going out our island and they're traveling back to the mainland, all the stuff that we used to do. That was our dream. That was the whole idea, was to introduce people to the trails and hopefully encourage them to have as much fun as we did, and I think that we've been successful.
It's just something that I think will never die, because I think as we move on, there's always somebody there that we touched that is going to take over and keep it going.
try, man. Eat it.
What is it? Is it spicy?
No.
Just,
Just eat it, yeah.
It's good. It's like a green bean or something.
Yeah.